Controversial guest speaker kicked off a high school campus. The school says the club didn't get proper permission for the event, but there's a whole lot more to this story. Radio show hosts Ben Ferguson and Leslie Marshall join us now for a fair and balanced debate. Welcome to you both.
Morning.
Hey, good morning.
All right, Ben, the school says this speaker was not properly vetted and they have a right to censor what their kids on campus are hearing. Why not?
Yeah, I love how this principal says, well, they didn't fill out the proper paperwork, so that's the real reason why we canceled. However, I'm not sure I would have let a guy come that I didn't know who he was if he is going to say things that may be offensive towards some of those or students. Well, what about any other speaker? I mean, almost every speaker that you can get is going to offend somebody in your school, some part of your student body. And so I find it suspicious that he's saying, well, I didn't even know who this guy was. However, what he believes in, I'm not sure I would have allowed anyway, which to me is, if I was a student there, I'd be going, whoa, time out a second. We brought in a speaker. He's been all over the country. You don't believe in what he believes in, obviously, and now you're just going to try to censor him and not allow our event to take forward. And you know what? Sometimes kids forget to fill out all the paperwork. It doesn't mean that their whole event should be canceled.
Leslie, let me ask you about this, because apparently the event was already underway. From the telling of the story that I've seen in the legal filing here, a legal letter from one of the attorneys that's now involved saying that the event had already started. It was halfway through that the school officials showed up and said, he's got to stop, he's got to get off campus right now. They also admit, though, that the previous speakers that had come in from this club had not been vetted. So does it ring true to you when they say, well, we're kicking this guy out because he wasn't vetted?
Well, actually, I think they were concerned because perhaps they got caught when not following school district policy. This is not just the policy of this one school. And we have to remember also, what type of a school is this? This is a high school. I'm a parent. We're talking about 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. I mean, yeah, Ben, anybody can come in and speak. Should we have man love boy organizations or the KKK or anti-Semitic organizations? I think that part of what our tax dollars pay for with education, Ben, what I'm saying is, as you said, any group can be offensive, but there are policies in place in our school districts that have to be followed. And you know what, Ben? I don't think that you would be singing the same song had this been a pro-gay message and these people had been kicked off in the middle of being there and had been there prior.
Ben, where do you draw the line?
Leslie, pro-gay messages make it all the time. I don't want to censor free speech, but it's obvious that this was more than just censoring free speech. This was a deliberate attack by the people at this school to come in the middle of a organized and a very sensible conversation they were having on campus. It was not mandatory for anyone to attend as well. It wasn't the KKK rally either for them to come in the middle and flex their muscles and shut it down. And I would say this, in a public school, if you have these venues and you have students that have these organizations, you don't go in the middle and shut them down just because as a principal you don't like the message that possibly the speaker could be having. That is what these kids need to learn about, is diversity. They need to learn diversity, and they need to learn there's opposite viewpoints out there, and he didn't like this viewpoint as a principal of the school.
Leslie?
Ben, I love you, and I know that you're speaking as somebody who thinks they're great at parenting, but you don't have a kid yet. So when you do, we'll talk. And I have to tell you, one of the things that we as parents...
I was a student once.
Ben, many of us feel, myself included, that diversity is really more my responsibility than an educator's. And quite frankly, when you have a school district that has rules, regulations, and guidelines, every group, regardless of their message, needs to follow the rules, A, and B, parents need to have the opportunity, as in this case in the high school in the past, where parents are sent letters where they can accept or decline that speaker or have their child waived from being a part of that lecture.
Ben and Leslie, we got to leave it there. And just to make a note, the school did announce this several times in advance. After the person got kicked out, there was a letter that went back to the school demanding that they be allowed back in. He was allowed to eventually speak, so hopefully everybody's happy, including you two. Thanks for joining us.
I'm happy.
Good to be here.
All right, still